What's going on, everybody? It's Cody Steck. Today we're going to talk about why EV stocks are absolutely exploding right now. If you've been watching the market at all in the last little bit, you'll see that a lot of these stocks have absolutely exploded over just the past couple of days even. A lot of these stocks were basically considered penny stocks just a couple of months ago, and now they're actually real solid companies that are seeing a ton of investment. We're going to talk about a few reasons why that's happening, and we're going to talk about whether now is the time for you to jump into these stocks, or maybe you should sit on the sidelines, or maybe you just jump in and see what you can do with these stocks in the future. So we're going to talk about that. This is just for educational purposes, but I'm going to share some of my thoughts on why I think these stocks are rallying and what you can expect in the future. So the first thing I want to kind of cover on this is that EV stocks are blowing up right now because they're finally seeing the growth that they should have seen years and years ago. Tesla has paved the way for these EV stocks, and now these other companies are coming in. And I think Tesla has proved that the EV world is actually doable, and there's a demand for it, and there's scale once you get going. So today we're going to talk about NIO, we're going to talk about Li, we're going to talk about Xpeng, we're going to talk about BYD. A lot of these companies are Chinese based, and of course Tesla is in China as well. But with a lot of these companies being Chinese backed and focused in China, you can see that there's a lot of demand for these electric vehicles there in that market. So Tesla has really paved the way. That's the first thing I want to talk about. Tesla has paved the way. They sat flat on their stock price for like 6, 7, maybe even 8 years or so before they didn't, they saw a little bit of increase, a little bit of decrease. There was bears everywhere on Tesla. And then finally, once Tesla was able to prove that they could become profitable and actually start selling vehicles at a higher scale, then the stock just took off and it sits where it does now. So Tesla has seen massive growth, and they've really paved the way here in the year 2020 to show that EV stocks are real and EV companies are, here for the long run. So obviously Tesla is way far ahead when it comes to EV companies, but that doesn't mean that these other companies can't see some success as well. Full disclosure, I do own Tesla stock. It is my #1 holding actually, and I do drive a Tesla Model Y. So I'm a huge Tesla believer. I have a ton of their stock, and I think that they're going to continue to see growth. However, like I said, I don't think that doesn't mean that these other companies can't succeed as well. Take, for instance, NIO, right? We're talking about NIO. NIO is going to see massive growth. They just doubled their sales in the month of October, and I think that when they report their numbers here in the next week or so, I think it's actually about 2 weeks out, I think that their numbers are going to look vastly different than they did in just the last quarter. So I think this is going to, again, push that price on the stock even higher for that particular one. So this is really one thing that I think of in the same way as just because Ford was the first one to start using the assembly line and mass producing cars doesn't mean that Toyota or Honda or Volkswagen weren't also able to break into the market and see massive success. So even though Tesla is way ahead as far as autonomous driving and just kind of the EV battery space, I do think that these other companies are going to see a lot of growth, and I think that they can be successful as well. So Tesla is not going to be the only one in that space that sees it. So what else is causing the massive growth between these companies? Well, like I said, we're talking about NIO, we're talking about Xpeng, we're talking about Li, BYD. A lot of these are being picked up by investment banks, and they're having analysts start actually analyzing these different companies. So now that the analysts are in it, they're saying, hey, we actually see a lot of positive results coming from this, and they've upgraded their price targets on these particular stocks. For instance, BYD is backed by Warren Buffett. NIO is backed by the Chinese government. So when these analysts come in and look at these companies and they see the massive backings that these companies have, it's impossible not to give them some credit and say, look, we think there's a bright future here. Tesla's already paved the way for it, and we think that these other companies will see some success as well. So we're going to place a price target on it. As soon as the investment banks start doing that, then the market floods in, and that's when all of the big guys, all of the guys with a lot of money start flooding into the stock. The other cool thing about this is that when one analyst group releases a report on a specific company, a lot of times the other companies see their stock price go up as well. Now, that doesn't mean that these other companies are just as solid as the one that received the report, but because you're getting that massive growth in the space overall, it looks like there's a bright future for a lot of these companies. The other thing that I've got to mention is that sales are up. Like I said earlier in the video, NIO saw their October deliveries more than double. So sales are going up, and there's a huge buyer demand in China, especially for these EV companies. When sales go up, the balance sheet looks even better, the numbers get better, the gross margin on these vehicles gets better, and you can see more and more investors starting to have faith in these companies. So although not all of these companies are actually profitable right now, they're expected to become profitable in maybe 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how you look at it, but that's kind of what they're expecting for these companies. So right now they're in super growth mode. They're not seeing the profitability that you would see with a standard company, but I think for the long-term growth and the demand that they're going to see, they're going to quickly blow those numbers out of the water. The Chinese government is actually backing a ton of these companies by providing a ton of funding, especially to NIO. NIO saw a massive fundraising from the Chinese government. The Chinese government basically came in and said, hey, look, we want you to succeed. We're going to give you some funds to help you do this. So that really gave NIO a boost. It really gave them confidence. And it basically said, look, the Chinese government does not want this company to fail. The Chinese government has made a commitment to turn a lot of their fleet of vehicles into EVs in the coming years. And so they're now putting backing behind these companies to help them be successful. With this, you can almost guarantee that, like, okay, this company is going to be on the run. It's not going to, might see some decreases, but it's not going to just like totally fail. If the Chinese government believes in it, then they're at least doing something right and continuing to provide funding for these companies to see them succeed in the future years. Now, one thing that I do have to mention is that some of these stocks may succeed in the coming years, and perhaps only one of them does, right? Let's say that you picked up 5 of these different stocks. You bought Tesla, you bought NIO, you bought Xpeng, you bought Li, and you bought BYD, right? Well, let's say maybe that one of these companies succeeds massively, and then the other 4 go absolutely bankrupt. If you put 10 grand into each one and one 10Xs and the other ones go bankrupt, well, you're still double on your money, right? You still have that $50,000. You put 10,000 into one of them, and at 10X, now you're at $100,000. So you really only need one company to see massive success, and you can double your money. So I think it's a smart move to pick up a little bit of each one of these stocks and track them and see which one is performing the best and see which one has the best growth and has the best margins and becomes the best company overall. Now, like I said, Tesla has already had a huge head start when it comes to their stock price and their technology, but these other companies, I think they're going to catch up pretty quickly. I think the autonomous driving is still a little bit ways out for them, but I do think as far as just selling an electric vehicle that has a lot of the amenities and features that people are looking for, I think that they're going to pick up pretty quickly. If they can break into other markets as well, whether it's in Europe or it's in the US or, whatever, I think they're going to see massive growth in a very short amount of time. Another thing that I think is pushing these EV stocks higher and higher is the likelihood that Joe Biden is going to be our next president. As the market has kind of shifted and Joe Biden has taken the lead in this presidential race, at the time of this filming, it hasn't been declared yet, but he's in the lead, so there's a good chance that he's probably going to be the one getting in. So with that being said, I think that there's going to be massive EV growth because Joe Biden is going to have a much more environmentally friendly agenda, and he's going to push a lot of things that will help EV growth, especially here in the United States. So that doesn't necessarily affect these other companies in China, but I think if the US gets involved in that climate change and kind of that environmentally friendly atmosphere, I think it's really going to help the whole market as a whole continue to increase, continue to get the technology better, and it's just really going to expedite the process of transferring everything from traditional vehicles over to EVs. So guys, that just covers a little bit about what I wanted to talk about here with EV stocks. Full disclosure, I do own Tesla, like I said, I do own NIO, and I do own Xpeng stock as well, and I think that there's a huge outlook for these stocks. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tesla be close to 500 within the next couple of months. I wouldn't be surprised to see NIO close to 50 or even 55 in the next 3 to 6 months, and I think that Xpeng's not that far behind. I mean, they just saw massive growth in just the last couple of days. I do think that we'll probably see a pullback on that, but I think for the long-term growth, again, I think there's a lot of potential there. So, should you get in? I don't know. I think it's still better to get in because I do think that a lot of these companies can easily double, triple, quadruple your investment in just a little bit of time. So this might be something that you really want to get in on and don't miss the train on it, right? So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up here on the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I love talking about all things stocks, money, and real estate here on the channel. With that being said, I'll catch you in the next one.